Welcome to Wayne's World Garage. Happy hump day. Started out to be 28 degrees this morning. Kind of cool for us here in Maryland, but it's already up to 35 or 36. Going to be a gorgeous day outside, and the sun's out. Then we're getting ready for more April showers for another 3 or 4 days. Well, we're at the Sawmill, and what do we got today? We got some tomato steaks, which aren't sharpened. So Tango 3, that would be Tom 3, is getting the tomato steak sharpener put together so we can sharpen these steaks. And by the time he gets these all sharpened, then we'll have a whole bunch more coming off the sawmill. We're ready to sharpen more, and then we'll have some stocked up and ready to rock and roll. Additionally, we're getting ready to do some quarter sawing, and we're not experts on quarter sawing, but let me show you what we got figured out. So we're getting ready to quarter saw these. We'll probably do that next week, or possibly in the middle of the week a little bit, because we don't want a big crowd here when we do that, because we're not experts at quarter sawing. But we did speak to John Clark, aka Frickin' Jeep, and we're learning a little bit. And it sounds like what he does, you'd probably want to cut the log in half. But what we want to do is we need to cut the pith out. The pith is the center of the log. That's what the garbage is. That's where it starts from, when a little twig, when it's a year old. And apparently that's where it cracks. And see where all these cracks are emanating from? So what I did is I measured here, 9 inches here, 9 inches down here, blah, 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 7.5 inches here. I want the fat end, or the butt end of the log, if there is one on the logs, and not perfectly straight, which in Maryland they're not, okay? We want the butt end at the back end of the saw. So because at the front of the saw, we've got 4 knees, we need to be able to adjust it. So if the back end is out 8 inches, I want the front end where it saws the pith exactly 8 inches. And I think what we're going to do here, we're going to cut the bottom here, make it square, make this whole thing square, but not a huge square, and then cut little side pieces off of it. So we'll actually stop sign it, okay, but not real deep, just a little bit, just taking off some of the sapwood. And then what we can do, then we can quarter saw it, put it in quarters, and then I can roll it up on edge. So the goal here is, you see I've got a quarter right here. We're going to put the flat spot right here and a flat spot here. And then we'll get some quarter sawn wood after we take the pith out of it. We'll see how that works out. And in the meantime, we're going to be doing some tomato steaks today, but I don't see a lot of logs to tomato steak. Well, let's see what we got anyway. All right, well, these guys are busted. We've got Alan on the left with a green jacket. We've got Tom on the right, and they're sharpening some tomato steaks. And of course, we've sped this up a little bit. So we had 60 or 70 of them cut last week, and now we're going to sharpen these guys off just so that we have them all ready, and we'll see how that works out. Sharpening the steaks is pretty easy. We've got a rigid drill, and we've got this thing I call a pencil sharpener. It has to be sharpened every once in a while. It does a fabulous job, but the steaks, we want them 6 foot long and perfectly sharp. So this is Tom, aka Tango 3, because he's our third Tom. And what we asked Tom to do was take the ratchet strap and secure the carriage to the track. This way, when the log rolls forward, it won't push the carriage off the track. And it happens with larger logs. It also happens when we put the knees, these little things that look like little L's, but they're backwards, go all the way back, because it's not balanced quite as well, and it's a little bit tail heavy. So if you screw this up, it will knock the carriage off the tracks, which, as it turns out, creates lots of drama, as you will see in a few seconds. So you may have noticed we've got several new guys, and in my book, the way for the new guys to learn is for the geezers, the guys who've been here a few years, to just step back and let the new guys learn and figure it out. So we've got John there in the tan jacket. We got Bruce, who's a geezer. He's been here a while. And then we've got Tango 3, Tom, who strapped the carriage to the rails down. And we're going to roll this guy on. As you can see, when we roll it on, the carriage comes off the tracks. Who strapped this thing down, Tango 3? But that's okay, because we failed to teach him properly. So we give him a better lesson on how to do it. And I'll spare you a little bit of the details of how we UATS. Who knows what UATS is? Army guy told it to me. Starts with on the situation. Regardless, we're going to take this the stick here. It's probably 50, 60 pounds. Might even be 80 pounds. Roll it off of the carriage so the carriage is a little bit lighter. Then we get to lift the carriage and put it back on the tracks. And that's what we'll do. Not a big deal. We've done it before. It's a good lesson because it's a lesson for how to put the carriage back on the tracks. And it's a lesson of you better be darn sure you strap the carriage down properly when loading big logs on here. It's all good and all works out. If you'd like to see the entire video of us, frankly, learning this and figuring this out, let me know. And I'm happy to post longer videos. So this is a red oak log. This is a 56-inch saw. And as you can see, we can only cut about 23.75 inches out of it because the mandrel has a diameter, stuff like that. This is the maximum capacity of this saw without stop signing it. But what we'll do is we'll take a couple slices off it, then we're going to flip it down. You can't go real fast though, even though the saw is extraordinarily sharp, thanks to Tom 2, who sharpens it. We don't have enough horsepower really to power this thing through the way I'd like to. Regardless, there's some nice looking red oak here. I'm kind of starting to make these into tomato steaks, but that's what people are looking for today. I don't know what you all think, but this log looks really, really nice inside. Look at the quality of this. It's a gorgeous red oak. Sadly, there's not a huge demand for red oak around here. So who wants these nice red oak boards? The tomato sticks we're sawing are 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So these slabs are 6/4. They're gorgeous, gorgeous slabs. As it turns out, one of the pedestrians was walking by and said, "Man, what's it take to get one of those?" So we loaded up her pickup truck with a nice slab, and there you go. What I'm doing here is this little tag at the end. I want to take those off. Otherwise, I can't stack these slabs up. And our boards won't be 100%. And if we don't do that, the guys at the log rolling end, where John and Matt are sitting, have got to take the little knife thing and clean these guys off. And they do that, but it's way easier, but just run it through the saw one more time. So now this is what we've all been waiting for. We've got these big 6/4, 1.5 inch thick slabs, and some of these are 18 to 20 inches wide. They're big. And I stacked 3 of them. We stacked 3 of them on top of each other. And each time we pull a stick here, we get 3 tomato steaks. So we're cranking out a bunch of tomato steaks. 3 of these slabs probably gets us 15 or 20 of them. That's quite a bit. We ended up getting 130, I think, or 140 tomato steaks out of this log. That's a lot of tomato steaks. But this is the fun part. This is a quick part, and it's the easy part. Although the sawyer and everybody still has to pay 100% attention. If I send these tomato steaks downhill too fast, poor Bruce at the offload end can't get rid of them fast enough, and they might come flying back and hit Tango 3 or John or me. So Tango 3 and John are loading up 3 more of these slabs. It's a pretty easy job, although you still have to get the dogs tight. Additionally, you need to make sure each board is entirely against the back of the knee. Otherwise, there's going to be a gap there, and as we get closer and closer to the knees, we're going to have some problems. So it's important, and Tom's doing a good job, and John's doing a great job. Make sure all of the boards are snug against the back of the knee. And watch when he puts that dog out with his left hand, he pulls it to get rid of the backlash and then drops the dog down. That's exactly how you're supposed to do it. Now my first cut here is just a tiny, tiny skim cut just to make sure these are all the same. As you can see, we're taking off maybe 1/4 inch here. Now I do a full pull and get 6/4 by 6/4 tomato steaks. Who's going to eat tomatoes this August? Not me. Actually, we will. That's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I've edited out a lot of this video just because of us hanging around and ratchet jawing and stuff like that. Who wants to see that? Additionally, a bunch of this is some of the newer guys learning how we're doing this. But next week, and possibly in between this week and next week, we're going to be sawing some quarter sawn lumber. So I've got some white oak logs I want to quarter saw, and Bob, one of our volunteers, his neighbor had some red oak logs, and he'd like to get those quarter sawn. We've not really quarter sawn much in the past. We're going to give it a shot. If you've got any advice or any expertise on how to do this, let us know. Yep, we spoke to Frickin' Jeep, aka John Clark, and we're going to kind of do it the way John suggested doing it. Flatten it on the bottom, and then kind of stop sign it so it can turn out on the edge. We'll see how it works out. Quarter sawing is not very efficient, but we'll still get plenty of boards, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Take care. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and give it a thumbs up, please.